Returning to the family bakery, nestled amidst the narrow lanes of Busan, was like stepping back into the comforting scent of my childhood. I stepped in, and immediately, the fragrance of freshly baked bread caressed my senses, triggering a wave of warmth that was more potent than the steam billowing off the bakery ovens. A beat-up wooden sign above the main door caught my eye, its faded letters bearing our family name, like a steadfast guardian overseeing the place that had nurtured my passion for food over the years. The aroma that wafted from the ovens wasn't just that of baking bread. No, it was much more. It was the scent of my own history and heritage kneaded into sweet, yeasty stories in the heart of this little bakery. As I maneuvered my fingers through the familiar dough, I could almost hear the soft whispers of the past, tales of warm family meals and laughter. Caked under my fingernails and staining my hands, the flour was more than a simple ingredient. To me, it symbolized home. Amidst these heartwarming recollections, the rustic quaintness of Busan regained its charm in my eyes. Like a favorite childhood book my heart had dog-eared. My heart fluttered as I reconnected with Eun-ji, an old friend from high school, amidst the biting cold of the Christmas season, only adding to the sweet nostalgia. Her laughter sounded the same, pulling me back to those innocent days filled with shared dreams and chewing gum promises. Oddly enough, it was as if life's profound journeys had but deepened our shared comfort, making our friendship more familiar, yet somehow new. Entire evenings were spent getting lost in conversations over cups of hot cocoa, as if trying to warm our souls in the chilly Busan winter and make up for the years we had missed. That was what December was about, wasn't it? Love, warmth, and a bit of magic. Fast forward a few months and I found myself crossing paths with an old friend, Min-jun, on a crisp March evening in 2017. The sight of him, still sporting his devil-may-care grin and brandishing a football, felt like opening a sealed envelope of shared memories and deep-seated camaraderie. Although my journey had diverged, meeting Min-jun was a refreshing reminder of the boy I used to be. The one who cavorted through the streets of Busan, feet slapping against pavement, chasing after the smack and spin of a football. We quickly fell back into our rhythm, like the whole course of time was encoded within the stitches of that worn-out football from our past. On the other hand, conversation was optional when the football was between us. Each swift dribble, arched pass, and agile dodge gradually rewrote our silent language of kinship. But amidst the laughter and rivalry of the game, there was a wistful poignancy, the irretrievable vestiges of a time when life was a playground, and dreams were as high as the lofted football soaring against the Busan sky. It was a feeling I hadn't realized I had been missing until I found it again. Interestingly, however, my equation with Eun-ji had already started to lose its warmth, much like the dissipating winter chill. Our shared comfort, which once felt like second nature, began to feel like a pastel painting in the rain, colors bleeding into one another. I couldn't exactly pinpoint where we began to diverge. It was an amalgamation of unspoken words, unsaid promises, and unshared dreams. But life was never meant to be lived dwelling on what's fading, so I turned my focus to a more invigorating challenge, a local baking competition in June. Winning felt like a reaffirmation of my calling, a tangible validation of my skills honed behind the rustic counter of the bakery. With every loaf of bread, I felt like I was baking a piece of my identity into the golden crust, leaving an indelible imprint in the realm of flavors. And the day I won, standing with a beaming smile and the trophy glistening under the vibrant June sun, I felt invincible in my passion, subtly shifting the direction of my journey from there on. Following that triumphant moment in the baking competition, things started to shift, both in my life and within myself. While my hands busied themselves with the daily rituals of kneading dough and slathering butter, my mind started wandering beyond the four familiar walls of our bakery. Conversations around the dinner table began revolving around my victory. The glowing praises from my parents, the genuine pride in my sister's eyes, the congratulatory messages from friends and relatives. All these nudged me to view my seemingly ordinary passion for baking from a different light. However, amid these exciting changes and newfound recognition, a rift between Eun-ji and me had begun deepening. Our paths that once ran parallel along the shores of youth now branched off into different directions, drifting apart like autumn leaves in the wind. We kept stumbling over the seams of our differing life goals, our shared dreams unraveling one painful thread at a time. Long conversations dwindled into short exchanges, Stolen glances replaced shared smiles, and the space between us became amplified by the silence, a heart-sinking silence that no amount of laughter or love could fill anymore. Around the same time, we received an unexpected invitation for a family dinner at Min-jun's house, a casual gathering under the guise of commemorating my triumph in the baking competition. It was at that dinner table, amidst the hustle-bustle of the preparations and the aroma of Min-jun's mother's kimchi stew, that I glanced at the mirror hanging on their living room wall and saw a disagreement standing starkly between Eun-ji and me. That evening, under an indifferent moon that had witnessed countless such clashes, we argued over our future plans, each standing obstinately in their own world, our voices echoing a discordant melody. Somehow, the sight of my distorted reflection in that mirror resonated with the clash of our differing dreams, nudging me towards a truth I had been too afraid to face. After what seemed like an eternity, we walked back home in silence, the echo of our argument fading into the nocturnal chorus of Busan. I remembered thinking how the once familiar bylanes now seemed unfamiliar, reflecting the strange discomfort that had wedged itself between us. We walked, each lost in the labyrinth of their thoughts, the distance between us measuring more than the physical steps. Returning to our respective realities, she chose the familiar comfort of traditional dreams, while I was slowly being pulled by the tantalizing mystery of uncharted territories. I look back now and realize that was a defining period for me. The release of tension that day was an unexpected cushion against the harsh aftermath of her departure from my life. My instinctive turn towards baking, using the dough to knead out the knots of my perplexed emotions, marked an interesting junction in my journey. I found validation within the layers of flour and butter, a silent reassurance that even if things weren't all right at the moment, they will be someday in the future. And deep down, I began understanding that my passion for baking was gradually transforming into a calling that was too powerful to ignore any longer. The turn of the year brought a cold snap to Busan, blanketing the city with a new, crisp atmosphere and making the warmth of our bakery all the more inviting. I baked more fervently than ever under such conditions, losing myself in the nuanced craft of each loaf, from the subtle pinch of salt to the gentle punch folds that gave the dough its identity. I found comfort in my oiled hands plucking pieces of raw dough, the scent of yeast dense and comforting, and the ardent heat of the oven against the biting Busan chill. I was reminded of my mother's love for baking and the enticing aroma that greeted me each morning of my childhood. It was my way of holding on to a piece of home while contemplating what felt like an inevitable departure. Eun-ji continued to be a part of my life during this time, albeit a steadily dwindling one. One winter evening I decided to cook for her, veering away from our usual bakery recipes. The meal was simple, a warm bowl of spaghetti tossed in fresh tomato sauce and a classic margarita pizza, the flavors reminiscent of a foreign kitchen. The unfamiliar task of making spaghetti seemed almost symbolic of my desire to venture beyond the confines of our traditional baking methods. As dough surrendered under my hands to get the shape of a perfect pizza base, I felt a new exhilaration brewing inside me, like I was making a small dent in the vast culinary universe. When Eun-ji tasted the pizza, she saw the glowing excitement in my eyes. She knew then that my heart was already pounding to the beats of distant dreams. Yet, with each passing day, the decision to leave the bakery became more daunting. The simple joy of walking into our bakery each morning, the way dough felt between my fingers, the warmth of fresh bread as it comes out of the oven, the rush and bustle of holidays, these were the stitches that held the fabric of my life in order. Letting go of these would mean letting go a part of my own identity, a part I have spent my life nurturing. And there was this burgeoning guilt of leaving my family to handle the bakery alone, the one that had been our sustenance and pride for generations. As my departure for Paris became a looming possibility, I was gripped by an overwhelming tangle of emotions. The sadness of leaving behind my humble roots in Busan, the exhilaration of the approaching chapter, the anxiety of failing at my French culinary adventure, all were gnawing at my core. But within the whirlwind of emotions, I knew that staying would mean trapping my aspirations within the well-trodden path of baking and, in doing so, potentially forsaking a world of unexplored culinary wonder. Each day, my determination to see the world beyond what I had always known sharpened a little more, etching a path that was yet to be tread. June 2018 marked a bittersweet moment, a pivotal turn in my life. I had decided, albeit with a heavy heart, to break off my relationship with Eun-ji, a relationship that was made by the bakery, and now was going to be the collateral of choosing the unfamiliar path of a culinary adventure over the familiar streets of Busan. I had shared many good times and a few mediocre ones with Eun-ji, but the inevitable choice to move to Paris had already cast its lengthening shadow over our bond. As we talked and laughed one last time, in the backdrop of the murmuring yeast of the bakery, the myrtle walls that had borne witness to so many emotions wore a somber veil. It felt like the end of an era, us as we were and the start of us as we were going to be. A few more days in the bakery, and then I was left staring at a life that I knew so well, but now felt like a distant dream. The day-to-day rhythm of the bakery, the cadences of an ordinary day filled with the hum of the oven, the bubbling yeast, the clinking of pans and the shuffling of loaves took on a heightened significance. Each folded dough, each kneaded bread, each aroma started meshing with the nostalgia of leaving behind family, friends, Eun-ji, and the bakery. It felt like slicing into a freshly baked loaf, warm, comforting, and now a tad poignant. On the day of departure, as I walked out of the bakery for the last time, a part of me was caught in between the aroma of baked bread, the bustling streets of Paris, and my French culinary adventure that awaited me. Also tagging along was this heart-wrenching feeling of leaving behind my parents in an empty nest. The whiff of freshly baked bread felt agonizingly warm. The garnishes of my own sweat and passion upon the serving table felt enormously gratifying. Yet there I was, inching towards the unknown, trading the secure blanket of familiarity for an exciting chill of a new adventure. A bet on my potential, a promise for the future, a perchance for pain. But therein lay the thrill of life, the chance to seize the unknown and mold it into my own culinary vision. To gain, one must lose, and I was wagering at once a part of me and my known competence against the challenges and promise of Paris, of Le Cordon Bleu. Returning to the hollow shell of an empty bakery in those last days was like wading through a memory-drenched mist. Every inch of the sacred space, every scent and sound, every hidden corner seemed suffused with the history of my life and the echoes of Eun-ji's laughter. Each bread I baked, each aroma that wafted from the oven was like a coded poem mapped out in loaves, a narrative of my past. I was cooking my heart out and stuffing the cauldron of my memory to the brim, all the while lacing the bitter realization of an impending farewell with the sweet melancholy of reminiscence. Stepping out of the bakery on my last day saw the culmination of my journey, a journey of dreams, love, passion, and a touch of heartache. The reality of leaving the enveloping embrace of my parents loomed large, upturning a strange mix of emotions. Worry, guilt, but mostly the exhilarating thrill of chasing a dream. I took one last glance. The chirping oven, the tall racks, the sound of perfectly timed mixers, the sacred kitchen that had seen me grow from a boy to a man. The bakery smelled of what it always had. The loving warmth of Mom's cared hands on dough, the sweetness of fresh brioche, the perfect crackle of a just-baked baguette, and the mild sting of tomato basil soup. Everything was tinged with a vibrant, poignant warmth as if our humble family oven was silently whispering its goodbye, a touching tribute to our bond, etched in the layers of aromas. Yet amidst the nostalgic hinterlands of the past and the dauntless anticipation of a future fast approaching, I realized this was an exchange. Exchanging one lifetime of memories for another, this time in the culinary heartland of the world, seemed like a surreal pact with destiny. Each step towards the promising persona of Paris was a step away from this familiar bakery, promising not just a culinary expedition, but a journey of love, life, and a raging passion for the kitchen. It was a bet on my potential, a nod to my evolution and sustaining the fire of ambition in my heart. An entrepreneurial pledge that even though I was losing a part of my known world, what I stood to gain was a chance at crafting my own gastronomic history in Paris, a dream that outweighed all. Nearing the final threshold of the bakery, I steal one last glance around, absorbing the snapshot of the space that gave birth to my dreams. There, in the crumb-dusted haven soaked in years of my own growth, I stand in the heart of my beginning, a humble bakery concealed in the maze of Busan. As much a part of me, as I am of it, the aroma of fermenting dough, the symphony of mixers, the visual poetry of dusted flour, and the love that sank into every loaf baked there was an unutterable essence of my journey so far. Holding on to the door handle, I find myself quivering at the monumental shift that the simple act of closing that door is about to catalyze. The familiar touch of the worn metal beneath my fingers, a firm testament of our shared stories, threatens to unfasten the brimming floodgates of memories. The laughter shared with Eun-ji, our tangled hands over cakes, the competitive spirit of a football game with Min-jun, the familiar echo of my father's voice in the early dawn, they rush back to me with an intensity both heartwarming and heart-wrenching. Tears well up from the crevices of nostalgia, but they taste more of gratitude than sadness, more cathartic resolve than desolation. The salty streak they propose on my cheek maps the trajectory of my transformation, both as a person and as a baker. Outside my window, Busan hums on as it always did, but behind me was a significant pause, a befitting tribute to a part of my life that nourished me more than just bread, but also a deep-rooted identity flavored with resilience and scented with golden dreams. Closing the door to the bakery, it feels like I'm not just shutting the wooden threshold to a locale, but also to an essential chapter of my existence. A realization dawns on me then. There was no locking the door because the bakery was coming with me. It had imprinted itself on me, in the kneading of my muscles, in the pace of my heartbeats, in the kneading of my dreams. As the final click of the door echoes into the now empty bakery, I understand that the exchange isn't taking place. It already has. The pulsating heart of my past and the yet-to-be-known rhythm of the future, both woven into the fabric of my being. I'm not leaving anything behind. I'm assimilating it, building upon it, expanding with it. The baggage isn't one of loss. It's one of wisdom fostered in the hearth of the past, awaiting to grace the table of the future with its richness. The finality of the closing door is just a semicolon in the incoherent poem of life. It's not the end, but a promise of what lies ahead. Indeed, traversing this symbolic bridge from Busan to Paris, I'm simply traipsing from one flavorful tale to the next. Where one story ends, another one unravels. I'm not bidding farewell to one home, but rather welcoming another. As I depart from the very grounds I was kneaded onto, I understand how the essence of the bakery, the myriad experiences that shaped me, shall be my companion as I indulge in the unfamiliar delights of Le Cordon Bleu in Paris. The scent of the bakery might disperse into the Busan air, but the flame it fanned within me, it will blaze through the Parisian alleys. In the risotto I'll perfect, in the spaghetti I'll twirl, in the dreams I'll realize. There it is, standing like a fort, my rustic bakery, sandwiched between my origin and the rippling surface of my dreams. Let's set the dough for the next chapter then. Let there be pasta,